Hello again, as you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and today's class is Out of Band Management Introduction. And this is one of those geek, sexy classes if you are an IT geek. So this is one of those topics that is not talked about nearly enough, but is incredibly important in the IT world, right? So in the modern world of IT, we are used to remote administration. You know, long gone are the times when technicians would automatically run off to whatever office in order to fix any problems that were going on with computer systems. Now we want to be able to remotely access computer systems in order to do administration and configuration and even installation, all of those basic tasks. We feel like we should be able to sit anywhere in the world and be able to reach out and deal with all of our systems. But here's the question for you. Here's a question for you, is what happens when a backhoe goes through the T1 line for your remote office, or your cable internet line, or your Fios line, or whatever else? What happens when something actually takes out your internet connection and yet your office still has to stay up and running? They may no longer have an internet connection. They may no longer be getting and receiving emails and all that kind of stuff, but they still have work to do. They still need to be able to share files within the premises. Computers need to be able to connect to each other. Internal messaging systems need to work. All of that kind of stuff. And then what happens if a T1 line, again, that backhoe goes through the T1 line, the T1 line is down, and then there is a problem with the network systems within that remote office. Let's say when the T1 line goes down, it sends some kind of signal throughout your networking equipment, and it kind of futzes them up. You know, sometimes networking equipment just starts acting a little flaky for whatever reason, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, if I had my internet connection live, I would be able to go in and remotely administer these systems, but now that my internet connection is down, what am I going to do, right? You know, I still need to be able to reach out and deal with those systems, but I now no longer have my normal internet connection to get to them. And that is where we get to out-of-band management. So basically what we're talking about when we're talking about out-of-band management is we're talking about management systems for your networking equipment or for your computer systems that receive a remote connection outside of your normal internet connection. So back in like 1999, the way we dealt with out-of-band management for our networking equipment was each piece of networking equipment literally had its own modem and telephone line. So what would happen is if something happened to the internet connection and our datacom department back in Denver needed to connect to our networking equipment, they could actually call in through a telephone line. The modem would pick up, and the modem was directly connected to the networking equipment. So they could remotely administer the routers, the switches, all of that kind of networking equipment, even if the normal internet connection was down. In the modern age, most of us don't normally use dial tones, so now we go to either 3G or LTE connections. Basically, we have these management devices that you can connect through to using wireless, using cell or LTE connection, and that gives you access to your networking equipment. So nowadays you can use one of these little management devices, you can connect it to multiple pieces of networking equipment, plus you can connect it into the local network, and so if something happens to your internet connection, you still have access remotely to all of your systems so that you can go in there and administer it and play around with it. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, let's go over to my little demonstration table, and I will show you one of these devices. So OpenGear, this company called OpenGear is what I'm going to be showing you guys today, and they were kind enough to send me one of their nice little remote management devices. And this is what one of these things looks like, so you have an idea of what's going on here. So basically with this, what you'll notice is, of course, you've got your antenna. So these are the antenna for the cell, or the 3G or the LTE connection. And then back here, I forgot to take it off, but there's actually a little panel, and if you pull this panel off, the SIM card goes in here. So basically you plug the SIM card in here from Verizon or whoever else, and that will give you connection into this box. Then from there, if you're just looking in the box normally, you'll notice a lot of ports up front. And so the first thing a lot of you noobs are gonna, or a lot of the noobs out there are gonna say is like, oh look, it's an 8-port switch. Isn't that nice? Well, it's important to understand, well no, basically it's 4 Ethernet ports, but also 4 serial ports. So, if you're dealing with your networking equipment, again, those switches, those routers, those kinds of things, most of them have serial connections. So if you want to be able to connect contact them using the serial connection, you use a serial port here with this adapter. This plugs into the serial port. Then you have the network cable that plugs from here into here, and that gives you the serial connection. So a device like this, it gives you 4 serial connections and then 4 network connections. So that's what's nice with one of these things, and that's one of the things you have to think about, especially, like I say, in the higher enterprise world. A lot of you guys are simply used to things like remote desktop or VNC, so you're not thinking about serial connections. What happens when, you know, your $5,000 and $10,000 pieces of networking equipment need to be administered remotely? You want to be able to administer them using a serial connection if you want to. Beyond that, if we flip it around, they've got connections for sensors and all that kind of stuff on back. They have another LAN connection, so you could actually connect this into a different internet service connection too if you wanted to. But basically, this is what we're looking at, one of these boxes. So this is a totally self-contained box. You put the SIM card in here, that connects it to the cell network, and then once it's connected to the cell network, you can then connect to it remotely and then be able to administer your boxes, you know, whatever's going on with your switches, your computers, and all that kind of stuff. So with that, let's go over to my my computer so I can show you how this little thing is administered. So we're taking a look at this. Basically, I've been able to connect to this. It has a normal IP address, 192.168.0.1, and of course it uses HTTPS for encryption, and all we then do is we just log into it. So it has a normal default, so root default, and with that we should log in. And so basically we're logging in, and we will be able to see all of the different things for this particular device. Now, one of the things you're going to notice with this particular device is this is definitely not Apple Easy. So just one of those things to keep in mind. If you're like, wow, I want to set up out-of-band management, make sure you give yourself a couple of days to figure out what's going on with these devices, because there actually is a lot of stuff that you can deal with once you start getting into out-of-band management. Everything from how you configure the serial ports to user groups to trusted hosts, all that kind of stuff. Remember, this is a type of infrastructure equipment, right? So it's important to realize whenever you're deploying equipment into your environment, there's user-oriented equipment, and user-oriented equipment you kind of just throw out there, and you don't really care how stable it is because you're probably gonna have to fix it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, the users just hammer the hell out of their equipment, so the initial configuration isn't so important because you know you're gonna get called back again and again and again and again to fix the thing. Whereas when you're dealing with infrastructure equipment, so this out-of-band equipment, what you want to do is you want to play with this and you want to test this a zillion different ways, because essentially once you set this up, you really shouldn't modify it until you're ripping out the data center. You know what I'm saying? Like, you walk into an office, you build out your data center, you plug this thing in when you build the data center, and basically the same configuration should stay there throughout the entire life of the data center. You don't want to be mucking around with this, because if you make any configuration changes that are wrong, and it's a remote office, then you actually do have to get on an airplane to go fix it. You kind of get what I'm saying? So that's one thing to realize whenever you're dealing with this kind of stuff, is there are a lot of configurations here, so make sure to play around with it a lot before you actually deploy it into the field. So the first thing here, if we take a look, is we see it has the options for these serial ports. So the serial ports, again, will give you connections to your Cisco equipment and such. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go over here, we can go and we can edit one of these for the console port, and as you can see, it's a pretty normal edit. You know, what baud rate you're going to be looking for, the data bits, the parity, the stop bits, all that kind of stuff. This is the type of thing where when you purchase your Cisco equipment or whatever else, it will tell you what these configurations will be, and you'll just plug all this in, you know, what signaling protocol you're going to use, all of that kind of stuff. So basically that is dealing with the serial ports, and what is nice with this is, again, you can change all the different serial ports to be different for whatever device you're connecting to. Beyond that, we then go to the network host. So these network hosts, these are the computers that you're going to be connecting to this out-of-band management system, so that you can administer them in case there's a failure. So Active Directory servers, anything like that. So we can go here, we can add a host. We can add the IP address of the host, we can add the host name, we can add the description, we can then add the permitted services. So what do you want to be able to do with this? Do you want to be able to do SSH, do you want to do Telnet, HTTP, HTTPS, all that kind of thing. So this is a very good thing to realize. It's kind of a security thing, because if you say only certain services can use this particular out-of-band management device in order to connect to these particular servers, then you don't have to worry about hackers, right? Because if hackers are somehow able to access this system, this out-of-band management system, and then be able to gain access to the rest of your network, that could be absolutely horrible. So by restricting the services that are available to each individual network host, that is something that can be very useful for security. Again, you can go down TCP and UDP, you can do different levels, device settings, so on and so forth. So basically here you have your serial port, and then you have your network host. Beyond that, you then go to users and groups, and you go to authentication. So, you know, creating usernames and passwords and such for people who are able to access this particular management device. Now, the interesting thing to look at here is we go to authentication, and you'll see the different authentication methods. Local, TACACS, actually I have to look what the hell that is, a local radius, a local LDAP, all of this kind of stuff. So this is one of those things you have to think about in your planning stage. Okay, you're going to deploy this out-of-band management system within your network. How are your datacom professionals going to actually authenticate to this system? Is it simply going to be local usernames and passwords? Are you going to connect it to LDAP? What is your thought with how all that's going to work? And then depending on what you choose, you go down, you can see, like for LDAP, lightweight directory access protocol, the server address, the server protocol, passwords, all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that you do need to be thinking about if you're going to be deploying this into the enterprise world, is how is the whole authentication routine going to happen. Beyond that, with this Open Gear, you can go and you see they have VPN connections. So the VPN connection is a very important thing, especially if you're dealing with the serial devices. Again, the switches and the routers and all that. So when you start sending commands from your computer to the management device for it to forward to all these other little devices, one of the questions is what about man-in-the-middle attacks? What if somebody somehow can get between you and this out-of-band management device and be able to start scarfing up all of the information you're sending back and forth? Remember, you're plugging in usernames, you're plugging in passwords, and not only are you plugging in just general usernames and passwords, you're plugging in enterprise. This is infrastructure usernames and passwords. So if anybody gets these usernames and passwords, they can actually take over your switches and your routers and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things you want to think about is how is the encryption going to work between you at your remote site, from you remotely and that remote site, so that if there's a man-in-the-middle attack, that they can't grab the information. So with a device like this, as you can see, they've got IPsec VPN, OpenVTM, point-to-point tunneling protocol VPN. Again, that's kind of one of those things. You choose whatever you want to do. Beyond that, for something like this, they also have environmental monitors in here, so you can play around with that if you want to. And then, of course, they have SMTP and SNMP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and SMS. This is all for, you know, if you want to set up alerts and that kind of thing. If we scroll down, they have some other options here, like if we go basically down to the dial. This is one of those things that you need to be thinking about, is how is this device going to be you're going to be able to dial out from this device or dial in. So they have the serial DB9 port, you know, disable modem communications, allow incoming communications, allow outgoing modem communications. That's basic security. And then for this particular device, since this is a cell device, we go over to the internal cellular modem, and it will give you a whole bunch of configuration things. So internal cell modem dial settings, disable modem communication, allow communication. You scroll through and you see a lot of stuff. Now, one of the interesting things with this particular device from Open Gear is it does allow you to plug in multiple SIM cards. So you can do up to 2 SIM cards depending on which Open Gear device you purchase. Why that's good is if you do something like you buy prepaid SIM cards, you know, different SIM cards expire at different times, or different SIM cards may have different amounts of bandwidth on them. So what you can do is you can put in 2 SIM cards, and then you can actually have what is called SIM card failover. So enable SIM failover. So if one of the SIM cards fails for whatever reason, it expires, you use too much bandwidth, who the hell knows what happens. If you put 2 SIM cards in there, it can actually fail over, and it will simply fail to the other SIM card. Again, this is one of those things you have to think about when you're deploying this kind of infrastructure equipment to remote offices, is what happens when something fails. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a really simple point of failure, then it most likely will fail in the future, and then you're still going to have to hop on a plane to go and fix the equipment. So if you have these little failover things, like what if somebody didn't top off the particular SIM card? What if that SIM card expired? That kind of thing. Like, what you could do is you could have your normal SIM card in there, so you always pay, every single month you pay for 1 gig of bandwidth. You pay your $20 a month for every remote office, and you always have that. Well, then what you might want to do is put in a prepaid SIM card that has, you know, 2 years of up to 1 gig of bandwidth. So if, let's say on that first SIM card, again, like the credit card doesn't get charged for some reason, something happens with the account and that account fails, then while you're trying to fix that particular account, it'll be able to automatically fail over to that prepaid card, and then you'll be able to go and do whatever you're doing, right? So, you know, they've got the SIM 1, so this is the bottom slot. They've got the SIM 2, the top slot, and then they've got dynamic DNS here. So this is, again, is going to be one of those important things. Remember, you're going to be trying to connect to this thing from a remote site. So, or this isn't a remote site, this is in a remote office. You're back at headquarters, or you're back at home. So the question is, how do you actually connect to this thing, right? So it'll get an IP address, but generally it'll get a dynamic IP address. You know, every time it reboots or every time it connects, it may get a new IP address, and if you don't know what that IP address is, then you can't connect to it, right? You got to know what IP address it has. So what you can do is you can go in here to dynamic DNS, and you can set up a dynamic DNS with, you know, dines.cx, dine DNS, whoever you want to use for dynamic DNS, and that way, instead of trying to connect to this particular device with the host name, you can connect to this particular device using that dynamic DNS address and be able to, do whatever you're doing. So that's one of the things there. If we go down, we can take a look at things like, I don't know, the IP gives you some information for configuring the IP addresses, you know, your network interface, your management LAN interface, your out-of-band failover interface, your general settings, all that kind of stuff you have to configure. And you can also go down and you can take a look at statistics to see what's going on with the particular box at the time. So interfaces at the 0 gives the IP address, at 0.0, F1, so on and so forth. We can go to route, serial ports, failover, and out of band. So we can go here, we can see what's happening currently, and then we can go over to cellular connection to make sure that is working properly, and all this information is given to you so you can see what's going on. So this is basically what we're talking about when we're talking about out-of-band management solutions. There's a lot of different out-of-band management solutions out there. Again, you can use telephones, normal telephone lines in order to connect to them. You can use cell networks like this to connect to them. But this is what you're looking at. In the modern world, I would argue this is very, 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 very important. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, what we're trying to do in the modern world is we're trying to centralize administration. You know, whenever you have to send a technician out to a field office, it costs a lot of money. Again, my first real enterprise job, that's what I did. I was called a regional, the hell was I called? Regional field engineer, something like that. And it really was. I mean, it was the type of thing where 5 o'clock at night, I mean, there were a couple times, 5 o'clock at night, I was packing up to go home, and something failed at one of our remote offices, and literally, I went from packing up to going home to calling the travel department and leaving directly from the office to the airport, right? That is really cool when you're 23. Let me tell you, when you are 23 and 24, you feel awesome when you're in that position. Yeah, man, I'm so important. They flew me out at 6 o'clock tonight just to fix the problem. At 34 or 38 or 44, that sucks. That sucks in so many ways, right? And so the more systems you have available to be able to remotely administer your networks and devices, the better it is for everybody. Basically, the people that you are servicing get a better quality of service. They get a speedier service, and you don't have to hop on an airplane, and your boss or your employer, your client, doesn't have to spend so much money. Again, one of the things you guys have to realize when we start talking about money is, you know, I start talking about real money. Like a lot of you guys are worried about 20 bucks and 50 bucks and 100 bucks. One of the things I try to explain to you guys is really in the IT world, that ain't nothing. That's just chump change, right? So you buy one of these devices. I think this particular device is like $300, and then you plug in a SIM card that's going to cost you, let's say, $20 a month, and that is peanuts. That is absolute and utter peanuts. Because again, if you think about sending a remote technician off to a remote site, like for me, I mean, there was airfare. So for me to go, it was at least $300 in airfare, plus $100, at least $100 for the hotel. So that was $400, plus food. I like to eat well. So let's say we go up to $460, plus rental car. So for me to go to a remote site and even do the most minute amount of work cost the company somewhere between $500 to $600 before we even got to my salary and benefits and all that kind of stuff, right? So buying one of these devices for $300 total plus $20 per month for the SIM card is cheap. Again, you know, when you have to think about, like, a lot of times when you're having problems with network connections, a lot of times they're reoccurring problems. We had that with, we had our Boston office, our Woburn office, and they just had the worst problem with their network. And what it came out to be, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, because sometimes the network was, or the internet connection was running great, and other times it would fail completely, and other times it would be flaky as hell. And it was one of those things you actually had to be on site to figure out what the hell was going on, which meant I spent a lot of time going back and forth to Boston for a while. What we came to find out was that the internet cable, the cable that linked the office building to the internet connection, ran under the parking lot, and the parking lot flooded periodically. The cable that they had run under the parking lot hadn't been properly sealed, and so whenever the parking lot flooded, that cable would get water into it and cause all kinds of, you know, wacky networking issues that were very, very hard, very difficult to figure out what was going on. And so literally every time they had these problems, I would get sent there, you know, okay, make sure it's not the servers, okay, it's not the switch, it's not the router, it doesn't appear to be the modem, and it was this huge thing. Well, having a device like this, I could have done 99.99% of my troubleshooting from the office here in Baltimore and not had to fly there. And again, this is what you have to think about with real cost. Probably to solve that problem, by the time we figured it out, I had done 5 trips to Boston. So if you're thinking about a minimum of $600 per trip, they paid at least $2,500 to $3,000 in order to end up solving that particular issue. And we were all scratching our heads. I mean, literally the only way we found out the problem is I ended up interrogating the employees to figure like what the hell is going on. What are you people doing? What are you people doing to the system? This just doesn't make a damn bit of sense. And then it's like, okay. So again, having these remote devices allows you to take a look at what's going on, and having the out-of-band management is very useful because, again, you know, like I say, is if you have a failure situation going on, and then you can see what is going on during that failure situation, it makes life a lot easier for the troubleshooter, right? If you have a failure situation, and then I come in after everything is working again, all I get is a lot of hearsay from users. Right? Well, I think this is what the problem is, and maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe the other thing. You don't really know what's going on. If you actually have a failure situation occurring at this moment, then you can use another way to access the systems to do all the troubleshooting while that failure is going on. Then it is much easier to figure out what the actual problem is and come up with a good solution. So there we go. So this is the out-of-band management introduction. Again, when we start talking about out-of-band management, what we're talking about is we're talking about some other network connection that you can use in order to remotely control your systems or access your systems. So you have your normal internet connection, T1 line, Fios, cable, whatever. this is a secondary way to get into your systems. So basically you're able to connect to this device that then gives you connection both to your computers hopefully, and like I say, it gives you those serial connections to all of your networking equipment. So you can sit back, you can remotely administer everything even if something goes wrong with the internet connection, and away you go. Again, very, very good, very, very useful, especially if you're dealing with the network world. The stuff I show you today comes from this company Open Gear that deals with a lot of this stuff. They have a lot of different products that you can take a look at. There are a lot of different manufacturers for out-of-band management solutions. So definitely take a look at it, because again, if you are dealing with real remote offices, you need an out-of-band management solution. Again, like I say, this little box here, I think it's 300 bucks plus, let's say you pay 20 bucks a month for a SIM card. You know what I'm saying? Like $240 a year for that access is just, again, it's peanuts. I mean, seriously, if you send a consultant out to a site, it's $100 per hour. So there's just, even if this saves you one trip like every 2 years, I think the return on investment is worth it. You know what I'm saying? So that's a class for out-of-band management introduction. Definitely something to take a look at, to play with. The one warning I will give you is if you do start playing with it, it's not Apple simple. You do got to go in there. You do got to make sure you set up all the configurations properly. Make sure you do play with it, because there is some complication to this, and making sure you set it up. This is the type of thing where you want to play with it a lot. You want to create a configuration, then you want to set it back to defaults, recreate the configuration, make sure you're actually setting everything up exactly how you want it, because this is the type of thing, you're going to set it up, you're going to plug it in, and you're going to walk away. Like, legitimately, once this thing is set up, you probably really shouldn't be playing with its configuration again until the data center is, is wiped out. Altaro.com, Altaro.com, if you're dealing with virtualization in a Hyper-V environment. So we're talking about Windows Server 2008 R2, 2012, and 2012 R2. Take a look at Altaro.com. They have a number of Hyper-V backup solutions. They have the free version, which will back up to 2 VMs for free forever. They also have the unlimited version, starting at only $400 per host. I think this is a very good value. So if you are dealing with Hyper-V virtualization and you need a backup solution, take a look at Altaro.com. NerdsWeCanFixThat.com. If you're thinking about starting your own computer services company, but you don't want to have to worry about coming up with a logo and copyright and trademark and all of those kinds of things, you may think about buying into a computer services franchise system. Nerds We Can Fix That is a computer services franchise system. They have 62 franchises throughout the United States. They can franchise in every state other than Hawaii. They also franchise internationally. If you're thinking about starting your own computer services company, you should contact them, fill out the information below, or give them a call. Again, as I will say, franchise systems are great for a lot of people, not so good for others. Always make sure to do your due diligence, but if you're thinking about starting a computer services company anyway, you might as well contact Nerds We Can Fix That to see what they have to say. Veeam.com, Veeam.com. If you just virtualized 100 servers and now you're trying to figure out how to back them up, they have solutions for ESXi, they have solutions for Hyper-V, and as you guys like, they have free stuff. So if you are dealing with a virtualized environment and you're trying to figure out a backup solution, take a look at Veeam.com. Spiceworks.com. These guys have the free network management software, the free mobile device management software, the free community with millions of users. So if you're an IT professional and you need support, Spiceworks is a great place to go. All of their stuff is basically free and just an absolutely great thing. Again, if you have any questions that I don't answer in the show that are technical in nature, we're talking about Active Directory synchronization between sites in remote areas. If you click on the link below this video, that will take you to the Spiceworks community. They have millions of users there that will be able to help you out. So take a look at Spiceworks.com. Is managing users and computers on Active Directory too cumbersome? Download SolarWinds' terrific trio of free Active Directory admin tools today and start saving time on those Active Directory management tasks. These free tools help you manage and remove computers and users from Active Directory and allow you to add users in bulk. The free tools include Inactive User Account Removal Tool, enables you to scan Active Directory and optionally remove users who have not logged in for a certain amount of time. Inactive Computer Account Removal Tool enables you to scan Active Directory and optionally remove computers that are over a certain number of days old. And
import tool saves time by giving you the ability to create users in bulk using a CSV file. You can even specify the attributes. Also be sure to check out SolarWinds community page, thwack.com, to connect with more than 100,000 IT professionals. So take a look at solarwinds.com for their free and other tools. SchooleyMitchell.com. If you're trying to find better internet or telephone service, or if you're trying to find less expensive internet or telephone service, give Schooley Mitchell a call. Basically what these guys are telecom consultants. You call them, you say what you need for yourself or your client, and they figure out the best option. They'll examine your existing services and review your bills to make sure there are no errors. Then they'll keep an eye on your services moving forward so that everything remains optimized. Because Schooley Mitchell is objective and independent, they have no ties to vendors. You know they are always your best interests in mind. The best part is there is no fee for their services. The only cost is a portion of the shared savings over a set period of time. If they don't find savings, there is no cost to you. Schooley Mitchell. Plixer.com. Plixer deals with NetFlow analytics software. So NetFlow is a component of Cisco equipment that shows you what's going on at the network layer, what devices are talking to what other devices, what kind of network jitter, all of that kind of stuff. So Plixer has a free piece of software called Scrutinizer. Scrutinizer is a free NetFlow network traffic analysis tool. So if you want to play around with NetFlow, if you want to see what's going on with the network layer and you have Cisco equipment, take a look at Plixer.com. Click on the link below this video. It'll bring you to this page where you can download Scrutinizer, the free NetFlow network traffic analysis tool. Adaxes.com. If you're dealing with Active Directory on a large scale, so you have hundreds of users to add, hundreds of users to disable, so on and so forth, you may want to take a look at Adaxes.com. This is Active Directory management and automation software. So this tries to automate and simplify the Active Directory workflow. So if you are in a large scale Active Directory infrastructure, take a look at Adaxes.com.
So the hands-on review today is the Initech USB 3.0 to SATA converter. So this is a nice little doohickey to have in your geek bag so that you can grab data off of old hard drives very easily. So this is good for things like data recovery, copying files, all that kind of stuff. So let's go over to my little demo table so I can show you what's going on. So basically what this is this is the guts of an enclosure or the guts of a docking station in a really small form factor. So basically you have your SATA connector here, you have your USB 3.0 connector here, and your power connector here. So the idea is, let's say you have a hard drive that you just pulled out of a laptop computer. You can plug this on the USB 3.0 connection into your data recovery computer. You can just connect this and away you go. So basically you can grab all the data that you need, you can copy paste, do whatever you need to do, and then pop it off. So what's nice about this is it's just so small. I mean, look at it. This is a 2.5-inch hard drive, and you can see that it's only about that big. So with docking stations are actually bigger than this box itself, and so those can be a bit of a pain to have in your toolkit. Whereas this, you just have this in the toolkit along with. You open this thing up, a little. Basically, you've got a power connector here and your USB cable. So that all just fits down very nice and small. You put that into your little bag. You go to a client's site. They go, "Oh, my hard drive died." And you say, "No problem." Pull it out of the computer, connect it up. You use the USB to either copy the data to your computer or copy that data to their computer, and away you go. It's just one of those very, very, very nice little tools. So I used to actually create these for myself before they used to be building these things. And what I would do is I would take one of the enclosures and basically throw away the enclosure part. So, if you open up the enclosures, basically there's a part that looks like this at the bottom, and then there's the rest of the overall enclosure. And so literally what I would do is I would just buy the closure and then throw the rest away. So this is a good little solution without having to waste all of that stuff. Now if we go over to the computer, I can just show you this thing. Again, if you go to Initech.com, INATECK.com, you can take a look. And this is the UA1001. If we go over, we take a look at the price point of this thing. It's a sale. You notice they have sales on everything. But the sale price of this thing is $18.99. I would argue for $19 for your toolkit. This is a very good price. You will see up here that the original price was supposed to be $40. Yeah, not a fan of that.
If they were actually charging $40, I would say just go and buy an enclosure and, you know, rip out the guts like I used to do. So at $19, it is a very good price. At $40, I think it would be a little bit extreme, but overall, this is the type of thing that you should have in your bag. Again, it's just a nice little thing. This is the type of thing you can just throw it in a small little bag. You go to the client's site, you need to do any data recovery, any copying, any of that kind of stuff. It just makes your life really easy, especially now. Oh my golly, you guys don't know what it's like. I mean, consulting in the age of USB 3.0. Do you realize I used to have to do this crap with USB 1 and 1.1? So USB 3.0, this will just make your life easier. So overall, you guys know, I get a lot of stuff from Initech, and I like all their stuff. Again, it's all built very well. It all looks like good quality equipment. And again, like I say, for the price, I don't think you can beat it. FCC compliance, they did give me this little guy, but I'll probably be sending off to you guys in a giveaway pretty soon. So there you go. Definitely, I would give it a thumbs up. I would definitely take a look at it at 19 bucks. 19 bucks, I don't see a downside. Again, like I said, $40, not so much. But at $19, definitely, if I was still a consultant running around, definitely take a look at buying this thing. So this question comes from Justin M. I know of a person who recently started working in IT at a pretty large company. He very quickly found out that almost all of the software the company uses is cracked, illegal software. He asked the head of IT about it, and they said, it is what it is. He is now wondering if he should stay or go, as they're expecting him to work with and deploy the illegal software. So that is a hell of a question. Now, I'm surprised that a large company is doing this, but this happens a lot in the smaller and mid-sized companies. Companies with like less than 100, less than 50 people. This happens a lot. Larger companies, they usually stay away from it simply because of what is called compliance issues. So legally, a lot of companies, once they get to a certain size, they have to start doing auditing and things like that. And so when that auditing is done, they verify that everything is in compliance. And in order to be in compliance, you have to have all legal software, so on and so forth. I worked for a 1,500 person company that I swear to you actually spent, I mean, it was in the late 90s, but they actually spent $500,000 on this server piece of software that would go through and actually make sure that all the licenses were in compliance. So, like when we talk about keeping licenses in compliance and how important it is, I mean, this company spent $500,000 to make sure 1,500 systems were in compliance. So it really normally is a big thing. You don't normally deal with it in large businesses. You do deal with it a lot in small businesses. So the first issue here is you have to realize, I would argue, you have to realize where you are in the world. Right? You or your buddy basically is a peon. If you are going to the IT director to ask about this, you are a peon. Unfortunately, the thing with a lot of peons, right? Peons want to right the wrongs of the world. They want to do things perfectly right. I will not stoop. Right? That's what a noob says. Noobs. Oh my golly. Noobs talk about honor and all that kind of stuff. I will not do what's wrong. And yeah, after you've been in the field for a while, you're just like, oh, you just do what you do. You get by, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just gonna get by. So the first thing is your friend should make sure he is not on his high horse. I don't know if he is on a high horse right now, but he should make sure that he does not get on one. You don't want to get on a high horse because, again, there's a lot of things in life you just simply don't understand how things work, and if you start getting moralistic and preachy, things will go bad very quickly. The first thing that he really needs to understand is he's not in the management position, and as being a lowly peon, nothing should happen to him if the company ever gets smacked. Basically, the IT director knows what's going on. You are following orders. It is the company that will be fined. So that's the first thought. The first thought is, you know, kind of is what it is. Past that, what I would argue is he should probably start looking for a new job. Right? Not that he should quit.
Don't quit, because that's what a lot of you guys will do. I will not tolerate this! And then you walk out the door, and then you're unemployed for the next 6 months, and that just doesn't help anybody. What I would argue is at this point, he should probably put out his resume and start looking for another job. This is not a place you want to stay, and so you want to go. The reason is because there's a couple reasons here, right? The first reason is because they're running illegal cracked software, which really has to make you question the overall management structure and just the overall the management of the company, right? Because again, when we start talking about things like compliance issues, when we start talking about things like fines and all that kind of stuff, it is not worth it for a large company to risk violating those licensing agreements. It just, if Microsoft does come in and they actually fine the company, it can be just a crap ton of money, like literally millions of dollars. So if you're looking at it, you really have to ask yourself, like, why is the company even allowing this to happen? If you're dealing with illegal or cracked software, you have to worry about things like security issues. You have to worry about whether or not you're getting all the security updates. You have to worry about, like I say, this compliance stuff. That is a really bad thing. The other thing you have to look at from the management standpoint is again, why they are even risking it. I know when you guys look at the cost of these licenses, it seems a lot of money. Like, oh my golly, a server license costs $1,000 and a client access license costs $50. That's ridiculous, right? So you walk into an office environment and they have to buy, 100 cows, and that's like $50,000 or something, and you go, that's ridiculous. Well, what you have to understand, though, is that price gets broken down per employee over a number of years. So if you look at a $50 CAL, client access license, basically, that comes out to something like, for the life of that client access license, it comes out to something like 2 or 3 cents per hour for the employee. So if the employee was making $10 an hour, it's the equivalent of paying them like $10.03, right? Because again, you're taking it over the entire length of time. So all of those licenses, you may look at it and go, oh my golly, that license is the licenses cost $400,000. But again, $400,000 spread over how many hundreds or whatever, how many employees you have, spread over the lifespan, which should be 3 to 5 years for each of those licenses. Basically, on a per hour basis, it comes down to a minuscule number. So again, the question then comes, how poorly are they running the business that they don't have that amount of money? Again, the difference between me paying an employee, $10 an hour or $10.05 an hour shouldn't matter. You get what I'm saying? This is all the kind of stuff that gets built into the cost of employees. Whenever you have employees, as business owners, basically the math generally for the cost of an employee is 1.5 times their salary. So if you make $10 an hour, you actually cost the company about $15 an hour. That's just how it is. And again, so like I say, when you start talking about these pennies or dimes, that just sounds really bothersome to me. So I would say you probably have some really massive, horrible, nasty stuff going on with the management. So either management is making really piss poor decisions just because they're making piss poor decisions. Therefore, you don't really want to stay with a company because you don't want to be there when they really make the worst of decisions. Or they're making piss poor decisions because they're not actually bringing in the amount of money they need to bring in, which means they have a piss poor business, which, you would rather quit a job because you get hired somewhere else versus getting laid off. Get what I'm saying? And that would be the other thing that I would worry about. So yeah, if you're going in, they're using cracked and illegal software. You don't want to be there. You do not want to be there. All kinds of reasons for it. It just, like I say, I'm telling you guys, for real businesses, it doesn't make sense. Again, those small businesses, I mean, I hate to say it, you know what I'm saying? Everything's relative, everything's gray in our profession. You have a 10-person company and the CEO won't buy the damn licenses. I'm not that worried about a 10-person company. I mean, if they were my client, well, let me put it, they wouldn't be my clients if they didn't buy the licenses. On the other hand, that's just me having a stick up my butt, you know what I'm saying? But honestly, a 10-person company can probably get away with having illegal software. They're probably going to fly under the radar. It's probably not going to be a big an issue. And again, even if one of their computers fails because of viruses or whatever, it's not a huge issue. Again, once you start talking about these larger companies, financially it doesn't make sense. I mean, financially, you just, as they say, you just stroke a check, and if they're not willing to do that, that's bad. So tell him to start putting out his resumes. Don't walk out. Don't leave. Only leave when he's found a new job. But definitely tell him to go for a new job, because that just sounds all kinds of fishy and bad. So this question comes from Ram K. My question is related to copyright contents. Recently you spoke about Microsoft. I want to ask you this. If we create a learning video for Microsoft or VMware or any technology for that matter, does it violate copyright? If we don't like certain technology and create a video, does it violate anything? This might be a question which would be very useful for many like myself who want to create videos of our own but are not familiar about copyright violations. Very interesting question, and in order to really understand what you're asking this question, you have to understand that there's two different concepts going on with folks like me who are YouTube content creators. There is copyright law, so there's law written by the U.S. government that stipulates how copyright works. There's also terms of service for whatever platform you are using. And the two don't necessarily meet. So basically terms of service for whatever platform you're using, whether you're using Vimeo, whether you're using YouTube, whether you're using some other service, right, doesn't have to match with copyright. So here's the issue. When you start dealing with copyright, true copyright law, there is a carve-out for something called fair use. So you can use somebody else's copyrighted material within your material under fair use circumstances. So fair use generally is acceptable for almost any kind of educational material. So if I am teaching you how to use Windows Server 2012, that is considered fair use. So I can do screenshots and all that kind of stuff. If I am teaching you how to build a computer or something like that, I can show you all that stuff because it's fair use. It is educational. I am in fact showing you how to do these things. Beyond that kind of fair use, you also can do fair use of more of creative content, so music or movies or TV shows. The issue, if you do that kind of thing, is that you have to fundamentally change what the content is. So that's how The Daily Show is able to use so many clips from Fox News. So Fox News does not like, Jon Stewart's Daily Show. Probably wishes Jon Stewart would jump off a cliff. But Jon Stewart is able to use all the clips from all the different news stations legally and make money off of it because he's only using a small clip and then he's creating the rest of a show, right? So he takes a 5-second clip and adds that to a 30-minute show. He has created a new piece of content. So whenever you guys are doing anything that uses little snippets of other people's copyrighted content, basically the idea is you just use a very, very, very small portion of that and then you create something new and you should be good. So that is copyright. So if you're going to be selling, if you're going to create videos and sell DVDs, or sell them directly by download or any of that, if you create the video and then you directly sell or distribute the video, you would be under copyright law, and so you should be fine. Then we get the terms of service. Terms of service doesn't really have a whole hell of a lot to do with real copyright law. So if you deal with a company like YouTube, you just get spanked 9 ways from Sunday. And the reason is because YouTube has so much video going up onto it that basically YouTube wants to make sure they are very far away from the line of the law. So YouTube has got sued for $1 billion from Viacom. I think that's still going through the court system. But basically with YouTube is very, very worried about getting sued. And with just the vast amount of content that's getting uploaded to YouTube every day, that is something for them to worry about. Again, YouTube or Google, who owns YouTube, they don't create the content. They don't have control over the content that gets created. So basically, they have to have some system so that if copyrighted content gets uploaded to their platform, that a company like Viacom or Paramount or Warner or somebody like that doesn't then sue them for distribution distributing that content. So what Amazon does is they come out with some really draconian terms of service to protect themselves. And I hate to say, I understand why they do it. I dislike it, but I get it. I mean, they're a massive platform. They get a zillion minutes of video uploaded to their platform every day, so they have to be very strict. So with when you're dealing with YouTube, again, they have a lot of these draconian rules. So if you use a little portion of copyrighted material within your overall content, right? So I had a video, I had a 2-hour daily blog last year where I showed you guys like a minute and a half Amazon video. So I was talking about Amazon drones, and I figured since I was talking about Amazon drones, I would show you Amazon's video about their drone service, right? So a minute and a half out of a 2-hour video. So per copyright law, that is completely and utterly legal. Yay! Right? If I wanted to take that video and put it onto a DVD and sell it to you for $100, Amazon couldn't do anything about that because that is A-OK by copyright law. Here's the issue. It's not A-OK by Google's terms of service if Amazon claims that material. So basically what Amazon does is they have a little algorithm that goes through, I guess, looking for any of their material that gets used. It was able to find that snippet, and therefore Amazon then claimed that 2-hour video, and now Amazon gets all revenue from it. So that's what happens. If you do use a little snippet of somebody's copyrighted material on YouTube and the owner of that copyrighted material pings you for it, then basically you lose the ability to monetize that content, and the person who owns that little snippet that you use gets all of it, right? Beyond that, if you use enough of a piece of copyrighted content within your own content, again, it is legal, but the owners of that copyrighted content can do a strike against you. If you get 3 strikes, you'll be booted off of YouTube. And what you have to understand, getting booted off of YouTube is not a legal action. This is not the U.S. government going after you. This is not the state police going after you. It's not the city police going after you. It's not the sheriff going after you. It's not none of those things. It is YouTube simply kicking you off the platform. So the terms of service for Google are a lot more stringent than what actual copyright law is. So this is where you have to be careful. What I say is, like, whenever I show you guys any screenshots or anything on the computer, I always make sure I don't import any of the audio. One of the little tricks of the trade for copyright world is that audio is the thing that will kill you for copyright violations. The reason is there's very simple algorithms out there that are able to turn the turn audio basically into a, I don't know, really long number, and so once it gets turned into that really long number, it's easy to be searched through, so they can figure out where there are violations. So if you have a track of music in your video, all the audio gets, again, turned into this number, and then that number can be searched, and that's how they can go through. So one of the things I would say is, if you're going to be uploading videos to YouTube and you're going to use screenshots and such, is make sure that you have the audio turned off. Do not import the audio from anything, and you should be pretty good to go. And yeah, and then just realize, like I say, with the whole microstop thing, I mean, just realize if you use a platform like YouTube or Vimeo or any of these things, you could be booted off at any time. Again, it's not copyright law, it's simply terms of service. So, you know, there you go. That is why we now have an FTP server, so you guys can download most of my videos. And so, yeah, those are some of the things to think about. But essentially, most of the educational videos should be fine. Again, like, I mean, there's a zillion educational videos on YouTube. Yeah, just don't import the audio, and just realize that, in fact, YouTube can kick you off at any point in time if they really decide to. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Do you ever just feel like you're getting a headache from foolishness? You know how there's like stress headaches, hangover headaches, and dehydration headaches? I feel like there should be like a foolishness headache, when you just sit there and you rub your temples and you go, I just can't deal with this foolishness anymore. But, well, I guess that's what you get for when you are a YouTube celebrity, or whatever the hell it is I am. So for the final thought today, I want to talk about the fact that you are not me, and I am not you, and what I am doing is not what you are doing, and so the things that I do, you shouldn't necessarily do yourself, and do as I say, and don't necessarily do as I do, because I'm doing something and you're doing something else, and we're different people, and oh my golly, why can't people get this through their heads, right? So, I have my little YouTube, I have a little vlog channel, so I have two channels on YouTube, Eli the Computer Guy, and then Eli Computer Guy Live. And on Eli Computer Guy Live, I do things like answer questions and do comments and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a free-form daily blob-ish type thing, right? And so, I answer questions, and so I answered somebody's question the other day. And then an interesting part with that question was the fact that the person, when he asked the question, also added in a lot of personal stuff. He's talking about he had two heart bypass operations and that type of thing. And so I did a little comment, talking about how people really don't care about your problems. And it is really a negative to talk about your problems in life. So if you're getting a divorce, or your kids have drug habits, or any of that kind of stuff, right? There's this feeling like you want to unload. Like, I want to tell somebody about the issues I'm having in my life. And the problem is when you actually do that in the real world, people clam up. It's sad. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's proper. But the fact of the matter is, many times when you reach out to people for some kind of emotional support, you get hit in the head with a log. Metaphorically speaking, right? And so I was saying, is you just leave all of your personal stuff personal. Like if you want to contact me and you want to ask me whether you should use Active Directory or Google Drive, if you ask me should you use Gmail versus Exchange versus hosted Exchange, those are the things I can work with you about. If you're asking me, you have 3 kids and you need to pay the bills, I don't know. That's just not the type of thing that I can answer. And as I was saying, the problem is, especially with geeks, is a lot of geeks don't know how to deal with their personal problems and personal communications well. So they bring these personal problems into the work environment, and then things go very, very poorly. Again, if I'm your manager, if I'm your boss, I want to know whether or not you can get that Active Directory server up and running. I want to know what's going on with the cluster. I don't really care about your kids. I mean, once the cluster's functional, we can sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about your kids, I suppose, because, I guess that's what you're supposed to do. But here's the thing. If the cluster has failed and you're sitting there bitching about your kids, I'm going to be looking for a new employee, right? The cluster is the priority. That is the priority. And then beyond that, the issue is a lot of people go out in life and they imagine that basically if I beg hard enough, if I give enough of a hard luck story, then somebody will bestow upon me a job or certifications or education. It's the whole thing is if I prove how horrible my life is, then people will be nice to me, which is a nice fairy tale. That is awesome if you're doing a Disney movie. If you're actually trying to get somewhere in life, it doesn't work out that well because, again, you go out there and you try to show, how many issues you have, and kind of nastiness ensues because the reality is a lot of the bullies and a lot of the people that prey upon the weak, I guess as you would say, will see you as a target. Right? I mean, that's about one of the worst things that can happen in life is you're feeling weak, you show the world you're weak, and then the predators come out and you find out how good your life was 30 seconds ago. You know what I'm saying? So, I talked about that. Basically, nobody wants to hear about your personal problems. Tell your mom, maybe. Tell your wife, maybe. Tell your counselor, definitely. But, your boss, me, anybody else, just leave it at home. It doesn't matter. If people care, they're going to care in the wrong way, and I mean that's just how it is. And so, what was interesting then is I did that little piece, and it really, I mean, it's true. I mean, it's just down the board true. I got some really snarky comments from people saying, "You're what's wrong with the world," and I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with the world? That's how the world works. But then one of the interesting things that came up is that people were saying, well, what about micro-stopped? Just saying. Well, you talked about micro-stopped.
And it was one of those weird points when I just started getting the foolishness headache. It was like, oh my God, there is so much foolishness right here. Oh, there is so much foolishness, it is giving me a headache. And so basically I got lambasted for the fact that before I talked about microstop, that I complained to you guys on my YouTube channel. So basically what Microstop was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Microsoft just did a massive takedown of YouTube videos for copyright violation, when in fact the YouTube videos did not violate copyright. And it was just a massive, massive effing goat screw, right? And so a lot of people are saying, well, Eli, you complained on your YouTube channel about Microstop, so I guess every jackass with a health problem should be able to email you about that too, right? So what I want you guys to understand, especially when I'm talking to you guys, is you have to realize my position now in the geek world is different than your position in the geek world, right? So sometimes I talk about my wife's cancer. I talk about other things that happen. And the reason is because I am an instructor, a teacher, a mentor, a guru, right? So what I am trying to explain to you is I'm trying to explain to you the real world of how this works. So when I talk about my wife's cancer, I'm not telling you about my wife's cancer because I want your sympathy. I don't give a damn about your sympathy, to be honest with you. I really actually don't want it. I mean, like really seriously, I don't want your sympathy. I really don't. What I'm explaining to you when I talk about my wife's cancer is the fact that my wife's insurance costs about $550 per month, and that when she had those 2 cancers, on top of that, it was about $30,000 in actual payable bills. So over about a 1.5 to 2 year period, it was 30 grand in cash that got sent out on top of $550 per month for insurance, on top of a bunch of other things. And so the reason I explain that to you guys is because a lot of you guys are like, I don't want to worry about money, Eli. I want to be a geek, because that is what I think is holy and good, and money is bad. And why I explain, like I say, with my wife's cancer, is because this is what really happens in life. Her first cancer was at 33, her second cancer was at 35. And so what you have to understand is if you eschew money, if you say, I want to do this simply out of the goodness of my heart and I don't want to worry about money, what I want to ask you is if your spouse has 2 cancers in 2 years, and it costs $30,000 out of pocket, plus for 2 years $12,000 for insurance, how are you going to fund that? And that is what my place is to you guys, to try to explain these things to you guys, so at least you have an idea of what's going on. Because again, that's what I hate with so many of these hipsters and so many of these like startup people out there going, oh, we should just change the world and we should do it out of the goodness of our heart. Well, I don't know about the goodness of your heart, but I have a mortgage to pay for. I have corgis with health insurance. Oh my God, so many health problems with my corgis. You know what I'm saying? And so what I'm trying to do with you guys is I'm explaining some of these issues so that you get a better idea of what's going on. Again, like I said, with the whole Microstop campaign, I was not complaining to you guys so that I'd be like, oh, please. I didn't start a Patreon campaign when Microstop happened. I didn't start a Subbable campaign. I didn't beg for you guys to give me PayPal. Basically, when I did the Microstop video, I did it for 2 reasons. One, it was about the only way I could figure to actually communicate with Microsoft so that they would actually understand how bad a problem they had created. Because again, one of the issues in life is a lot of people think like, oh, us YouTubers, oh, that's just your hobby. Oh, that's just something cute you do on the side. Again, this has been my full-time job for 3 years. So Microsoft coming in and doing what they did is a big deal. And when I talked about how much money I make, or gave you a bit of an idea of how much money I make, the other thing is just to hammer home that point. You know, this is not the replacement for a pizza delivery job. I mean, this gives me income parity with what I would make if I was a CTO. Like, if I went out as the technical professional that I am into the real world to help start the next dog dating site, I would make somewhere around the money I'm making off of YouTube. I mean, that was one of the points I was trying to make with that. And then the other thing with the Microstop videos is also to explain to you guys, you know, how precarious some of this can be. You know, that's one of the big questions that comes up now with these modern tech businesses, and something that you guys should be thinking about is, you know,
all of these platforms that are being created, you know, platforms, whether it is Facebook or whether it is Twitter, or whether it is YouTube, or whether Uber is trying to turn itself into a platform. The issue is if you get in with a platform and you're very successful with the platform, you can make a lot of money and it's amazing and everything is just fucking, you know, cotton candy and fairy dust, all the way up until that platform literally can be changed in a heartbeat and everything can go to hell. You know, this has been seen as a massive thing in the Facebook world. You know, how many businesses were built as Facebook apps, and then things haven't gone so well as Facebook changed their APIs and things. Twitter, I mean, how many businesses were created that helped Twitter get to where it is, and then Twitter, after Twitter becomes impressive and gets an IPO, then they start shutting down these other things. And then, like I say, with YouTube, I mean, YouTube can shut me down in a heartbeat. I mean, they can shut off monetization tomorrow, and like with the Microsoft campaign, if you get 3 copyright violations, they literally simply just delete your account. So the question is when you create a business off a platform, these are the things that you need to be thinking about. You need to realize it is a risk. I realize it's a risk with the whole Microsoft issue. I was a little surprised. It was one of those things that Microsoft caused the problem. I mean, like, my biggest problem with that was actually it's like, wait a minute, I have created how many videos talking up Microsoft? I used to actually promote Microsoft, which I don't anymore, and you're going to hammer my channel to hell and back? That doesn't make a lot of sense. So one of the things I want you guys to understand, and this is something that is very important for you guys, especially when you guys are dealing with professors, when you're dealing with instructors, when you're dealing with your boss, when you're dealing with some other kind of mentors and gurus and all that kind of stuff, is there is very much the reality of do as I say and don't necessarily do as I do. When I come on here, I may tell you about specific things. And you may get confused again about why I'm doing it. And it's like I say, it's not about sympathy or any of that. If you ever meet me in real life, you know I hate sympathy. I really hate sympathy. Just go away. Don't give me a hug. Don't tell me how sorry you are. I really don't care. If you really want to be nice to me, just go the hell away. Honestly. But the reason I explain these things is, like I said, because they hit on larger concepts. It's not about my wife having cancer. It's about the financial responsibility of having a spouse having cancer. You know what I'm saying? It's like I talk about taking my corgis to the vet. It's not about my corgis being sick, boo-hoo. It's about, you know, when you have a pet for your kid or whatever, and that pet gets sick, do you have the money to bring that pet back to health? Can you pay the bills? Can it have surgery? Can it have whatever? Or do you have to put it down? You know what I'm saying? Those are the larger concepts that I'm trying to bring across, because everything I try to do here is, again, real world. I don't want to talk about theory. You guys don't hear me talk a lot about theory, because that doesn't really matter. It's about the experience of actually doing it. So that's my whole thing. Like I say, I have a foolishness headache. All these people are like, yeah, you talked about Microsoft. It's like, dude. One, I had to do with my business. 2, it was the only way, like I say, I knew how to communicate to Microsoft. And 3, it was a way to tell you guys, if my entire channel got vaporized the next day, what the hell happened. So yeah, there we go. That is not... Again, you don't need to know about my health problems. You don't need to know about my dog's health problems. You don't need to know about all that other stuff. Oh. Do as I say. Don't necessarily do as I do. So in case you have missed it, the Eli the Computer Guy live YouTube channel is trucking along quite nicely. We're up to almost 10,000 subscribers. So basically, this is kind of like the Daily Blob version, like 3.0. So essentially, on the Eli the Computer Guy live YouTube channel, what I do is I answer questions, I do comments, I take you guys on little field trips, and these are short little sections. So whereas when I did the Daily Blob show, they were, you know, 2 or 3 hour long shows where I answered questions and did comments and all that kind of stuff. What I'm doing here is every day I'm adding 2 to 3 comments or questions or field trips or any of those kind of nifty, neat little things I think you
you might be interested in and trying to communicate with you guys that way. So, you know, question, do appliance-based firewalls and security systems work? Question mark. All the way down to field trip, a look at the Baltimore Robotics Center, you know, are print servers still needed or relevant? All the way to how to talk to black people. Yes, that's right. So basically, this is kind of like the irreverent channel, the way the Daily Blob used to be. And again, like I say, it's trucking along quite nicely. So if you're interested in taking a look at this, it is Eli Computer Guy Live. So there is no "the" for the channel, so just YouTube/Eli Computer Guy Live. Take a look at it. It's growing. It is doing well. I'm very happy. And if you were a fan of the Daily Blob, I think you will like that.